Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I want to try to give you a little bit of an update on where we stand on the tragic incidents which took place yesterday in Guyana. I think essentially now we are through phase one of this operation, phase one being essentially the outgrowth of the incidents in Guyana yesterday when the people were killed and wounded. Essentially what we have is a figure of 5 persons dead, 10 wounded, 2 of them seriously, and 1 slightly wounded who did not come out of Guyana. The person who was only slightly injured and is ambulatory, as I said this morning, is the Deputy Chief of Mission of the United States Embassy in Guyana. His name is Mr. Richard Dwyer, and he has remained behind.
Are you counting him among the 10?
I am counting him among the 10 wounded.
Richard Dwyer?
Dwyer, D-W-Y-E-R. The pathologist I mentioned this morning who went down on the C-141 from the United States has remained behind to assist the Guyanese authorities as they begin to conduct their investigations into the crimes which were apparently committed. We have now not quite entered into the next phase of this series of occurrences, which is essentially what is going on now in Jonestown, Guyana. The Guyanese security forces and police forces, which I was talking with you about this morning, have not yet reached Jonestown. They are not there yet. They are presently on that dirt road which runs from the airstrip to the settlement at Jonestown. They are proceeding up the road. I do not have an estimated time of arrival for you. They are proceeding on foot. They are proceeding cautiously, and I just don't have an estimate for you on when they might reach there.
How far is that time?
It takes, in a Jeep, in dry weather, 20 minutes.
Is it what down there?
I do not know what the weather down there in that particular part of Guyana is today. I'm sorry. The bodies of the people who lost their lives at the airport are remaining behind in Guyana at the moment.
In Georgetown?
No, they are last reported at the airstrip. We believe that they will be transported to Georgetown as soon as possible. Questions?
Is the embassy officer going with troops to Jonestown?
You mean is the Deputy Chief of Mission? Or
there was an embassy officer who flew out with him to Matthews Ridge and then into the airstrip this morning before Khartoum there.
I do not know whether an officer from the U.S. Embassy is accompanying the question. I am not able at this time to confirm for you the report by the Guyanese police on the suicide of the woman in Georgetown, nor the death of the 3 children in Georgetown. Now, excuse me, just a minute. As to what may be taking place in the state of California, in Los Angeles, and in San Francisco, I have heard reports from at least San Francisco that nothing untoward seems to be going on there at the moment. But really, I am not your best source on that, and I refer you to the police departments of those 2 cities.
Tom, now the one report of suicides at Jonestown then is the one from the fellow who went overland last night to Matthews Ridge, and that's it as far as you know.
No, let me try to, there was a report of a suicide in Georgetown.
Right.
And connected with that suicide was the death of 3 children. That is one incident. There is a report which has been made by a former member of the People's Temple community at Jonestown who escaped and went to Matthews Ridge last night. He has delivered a report to Guyanese authorities about mass suicides in Jonestown. We have not yet been able to talk with the person who made that report. Therefore, I am not able to offer you any independent confirmation of that through U.S. officials, and obviously not through the security forces which have not yet arrived at Jonestown. Yes, sir.
Release the names that
The C-141 plane, which I mentioned to you this morning, took off from Georgetown, Guyana at 12:56 Eastern Standard Time. Just about at 3:30 Eastern Standard Time this afternoon, it landed at Roosevelt Roads in Puerto Rico. Some of the most seriously wounded are being taken off the plane there so that they can receive medical attention in the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico. The rest of the evacuees will be flown from Roosevelt Roads to Andrews Air Force Base in suburban Maryland. I do not have an estimated time of arrival for that C-141 for you at this time.
Taken off in Puerto Rico?
It has not taken off to my knowledge.
How many were taken off in Puerto Rico?
It was, the intention was to take off 2 in Puerto Rico, but I do not know. That medical judgment could have been updated since the time I was given it. It is my understanding that both the attorneys who are counsel for the People's Temple community are presently in Jonestown, Guyana.
And they are not missing and
It is my understanding that they are accounted for and that they are presently in Jonestown.
Does it follow that they went off on the flatbed truck or some such thing?
No, it does not follow.
Were they at the airport or did they go
They
back
were,
to Jonestown?
it is my understanding they were at the airport and that they are presently back in Jonestown.
Just to follow this a little bit
How do
more.
how do we know that? How do we know that they're in Jonestown? We have absolutely no knowledge of what else is going on in Jonestown. Do we know that the 2 of them are there?
It is my understanding that they are in Jonestown. I do not have a source for my information.
Tom,
I mean, you're being very...
Sir, no, wait.
Since you were very cautious about the mass suicides that may or may not be going on in Jonestown, I'm just wondering how it is that you know, and you do appear to know, I mean, you're not couching it in your usual cautious language, that both these attorneys are now in Jonestown. Do you have knowledge of anything that is going on in Jonestown?
I'm sorry, the full investigation obviously is going to have to be carried out by the security forces, which are on their way to Jonestown and which have not yet arrived there. Now, just a minute, please. That is not to say that we have no information. Obviously, we believe that the 2 attorneys at this time are in Jonestown. I don't have a sourcing for our information for you.
That's fine, excuse me, if I could just follow up my own question. You know that, and that the issue which seems far more overriding at the moment is whether or not 200 suicides or anything like it have taken place in Jonestown. You have no information at all on that?
I have no information beyond the information which I just went over with you, and I have sourced that information for you. I have no further information to offer on what may have occurred last night or yesterday afternoon in Jonestown. Yes, sir.
A couple of things from this morning. If the State Department was aware of complaints before all this happened from parents of youngsters who might have been mistreated there.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I wanted to clear up from this morning. In fact, I had a list. I went back through the transcript to see areas that I thought were somewhat confused. Unfortunately, I don't have my list in front of me here. But let's go to this question. First of all, I was asked what proportion of the settlement at Jonestown was children versus adults. It is our understanding that there are some 1,000 or 1,100 Americans resident at Jonestown, Guyana. Of those, I have seen varying reports, but some 50 or 60 might be described as children, And by children, I want to define this carefully because I mean children under 14 years old who are readily identified as adolescent or pre-adolescent children. Now, I cannot give you an approximate number for people who might be in their 20s, and that might have been part of kind of the definition of children. But now, having said that, I will say that the State Department urged caution upon Congressman Ryan, and we did, in a logistical sense, indicate to him the logistical difficulties of taking a large entourage of people into so remote an area of Guyana. So we made him aware of lack of fuel supplies, lack of vehicles, difficulty communication, that sort of thing.
It was a peaceful, idyllic community. There was no information given to him that things were peaceful there, or was that the information he received?
Now, you ask further, what, if anything, did the State Department do? Did we investigate? What was the nature of our role in looking into this matter? State Department consular officials, as I said this morning, did visit Jonestown, Guyana on a periodic basis, once a month or once every 6 weeks. Consular officials. During the course of these visits, which were made for normal consular purposes, to see whether, for instance, Social Security benefits were being received, to see that births were being registered as they occurred. When we received complaints from relatives in the United States that conceivably people were being kept in Jonestown, Guyana, against their will, we attempted, as best we could, through our consular officers, to ascertain whether this was true. We attempted to talk with the individuals whose names we had been provided by their relatives here in the United States to see whether they believed they were being held against their will. We attempted to do this whenever we could privately with the individuals named in the letters we had received from their relatives here in the United States.
Did you ever have contact with any of them?
Yes, our consular officers did.
Were there complaints that they made, and if so, were the complaints ever followed up?
To my knowledge, no resident of Jonestown ever admitted to a State Department consular officer that they were being held in Jonestown against their will.
So you said these consular visits were monthly?
I think the frequency varied.
This morning about
Yes, I think I can clear that up. It was a matter of some confusion, and I apologize for this morning's briefing, but I have checked that out further. And I really invite other questions which you were unclear about this morning, because I did seek further elucidation. I just don't have my list in front of me. But to respond to your specific question, it is my understanding that Congressman Ryan was in the Department of State in August for a briefing. It is my understanding that he came back to the Department of State very shortly before his visit to Guyana, which began on November 14th. Congressman Ryan, by virtue of the constituency which he represents, was aware of the allegations made by certain of his constituents with regard to the community in Guyana. I would not say that it would be fair to characterize those briefings as warning him not to go. I think the substance of what was discussed was more or less as following. I think for the part of the State Department, we indicated to the congressman that we recognized that it was part of his duty to render service to his constituents. And this was a problem which some of his constituents perceived, and Congressman Ryan was behaving in a public spirited manner in trying to track down those complaints. We offered to render assistance, and in fact did render assistance to Congressman Ryan during his journey in Guyana. As I mentioned this morning, even the number 2 man in our embassy accompanied the congressman as he went to Jonestown. I can't, I have tried as best I can to give you the thrust of what the State...
What state told the congressman?
No, I think what a fair characterization of what State told Congressman Ryan was as I have expressed it to you. Yes.
I don't understand. When you say the State Department urged caution upon Congressman Ryan, you mean to say that they urged caution in respect to the logistical arrangements in Guyana, or that they urged caution in a larger sense, that this is a group that may be volatile?
I think the thrust of what we were telling the congressman really had to do with the logistical difficulties of taking a large entourage of people in his own... No, wait, can I finish? People on his own staff or on the congressional staff, media people, relatives of people who might have been resident at Jonestown. But nevertheless, there was an aspect to it to behave with caution and common sense. But this would be, I think this would be normal kind of advice that our embassies or the State Department would give Americans traveling abroad.
So if I understand it correctly, then you're saying...
Not in really... We will await the arrival of Guyanese security forces.
Thank you.
Deputy Chief of Mission remains at the airstrip and is expected to depart shortly if he has not done so already for Georgetown.
Tom,
Yes.
without getting into anything...
Well, I'm not sure what the situation on the ground is there. I am not sure whether there are vehicles available for them to use. Possibility that hostile action could conceivably take place, although I hasten to add right away we have no reports